What's going on, Lions fans? Welcome to the Pride of Detroit YouTube channel. My name is Miko, joined once again by my guy Morgan Cannon. And Morgan, it is the Monday after the NFL Scouting Combine, which means everybody and their mama's talking about who won the weekend, who had big days. Unfortunately, that's not exactly what we're going to do today because, unfortunately, we're not going to be doing exactly that. But fortunately, the other guys over here at the POD staff already took care of handling a lot of the recap stuff, a lot of the winners. Jeremy was able to, be in attendance, got to attend a lot of the media day scrums. So after you watch this video, specifically after you watch this video, I highly recommend you guys go check out the Pride of Detroit podcast, where they talked about some of the big winners, some of the big things that really stood out to Jeremy while he was in attendance at the combine, and really just kind of get a good recap of everything that happened this past weekend. Morgan, what I think would be really beneficial though for today is really talk about some of our favorite prospects now that the combine is over, now that we've gotten to see some of these guys, at least be able to see how they test, see who's truly as athletic as their tape shows or who's not nearly as athletic as their tape shows, and really start to kind of put some names on the board in terms of players that we would like to see the Lions consider, if not outright pick, when they have the opportunity to, once draft night finally gets here.
Yeah, and you'll hear a lot of football people talk about that, whether they're in a pro personnel department or a scouting department for an NFL team, what have you. And you'll hear it. They'll say they go to the combine not to be taught new information. You go to the combine to confirm what you think you already know from watching tape. And that's how a lot of people do it, because that's the way to not be wooed by like a really, really awesome tester. You know what I mean? Like we've seen that time and time again, right? Like through the years where someone like runs a really fast 40 or bench presses 50 reps or what have you, like something crazy, otherworldly. And then they shoot up a draft board and then they end up not being the best football player. So I'm thankful the Lions look like, over the years now, since Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell have arrived, they've got their process pretty well in place. It's like a machine, right, Miko? Like it's just going to keep on rolling. So yeah, I'm excited to get into it. Shout out to Jeremy. He had to definitely listen to that podcast if you haven't already. I had some really cool insight. Like that was his first time being at the combine, and he liked it, which is cool because I hope he goes back, because it's good to have him there for the site and for everything else. So yeah, excited to get into it, man.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think this is going to be a really good video, especially for you guys as the viewers, to really get involved as well, because Morgan and I are really just going to go through some 3 basic questions and use those questions to talk about some of our favorite prospects. But if you, again, want to kind of partake in the conversation, definitely jump into the comment section. Go ahead and, name a couple players that you are, that come to mind when we start going through these various questions in these various situations here. So Morgan, with that said, let's start off with the very first question, which is, we know the Detroit Lions have the 28th overall pick, right? Because of this, of such having a great season this past year, they're picking near the bottom of the first round. And there's no guarantee that the Lions are going to move, that they're going to whether they trade up or trade down. But if we were to look at where they sit currently at 28, give me a player that you look at that you're like, hey, if this guy's available at 28, I would love for the Lions to pick this player.
Yeah, for me, I'm going to go Gray Zabel, the interior offensive lineman, North Dakota State. I'm really excited. Like if he made it to 28, I think that'd be a slam dunk, just because you're setting that offensive line up for the future. There's some aging pieces. I do think Frank Ragnow will be around for a while longer, based on how he played last year and what he was saying after he got a little bit ticked off. People are like, when are you going to retire? So I think that's something to watch. But at the same time, Zabel is someone who could step right in and be the Frank Ragnow replacement down the road, whenever that is, and someone who could start right away too and be an impact player. So 6'6", 312 pounds, didn't run at the combine, was dealing with a little tweak, but looked like effortless out there. Watched it live and then caught the highlights and the clips again. Just an easy mover. That's something I try to look for, right, Miko? Like when you're watching the combine, like, how does the athlete look like moving, both like during the testing and during the on-field drills? And he looked effortless out there for a really big human. So yeah, Gray Zabel would be a nice boost of youth and like talent to a line that the Lions need to keep that like an S tier offensive line to operate how they want to, right?
Yeah, and I think the thing that I also love about someone like Gray is his versatility, right? Obviously played a lot of left tackle while he was over at, I believe it's North Dakota State, but has that versatility where he's already somewhat being projected to maybe slide inside to play guard, But because he played left tackle for so long, you always have that as an option as well. As if he comes into camp and he, you can at least give him those opportunities, give him those second team reps behind Decker to see, can he actually play left tackle at the next level, or does he, should he be more inside, and what does that look like for the Lions? That again, while you have your right tackle, pretty much solidified, and you can even almost say like your left tackle solidified in Penei Sewell, everything else like can be kind of moved around to be able to fit whatever new personnel that you're bringing in. So Gray's able is someone that I definitely like as a possibility for the Lions at 28. I think also just going offensive line, like the further you get in the first round, like that's where the value really starts to shine. While it can be a little questionable for other pieces, offensive line typically like that's where you start to see some of the better again, especially interior prospects once you get near that bottom of the first round.
Yeah, I'm right there with you, man. And we don't know who's going to be available at 28. That's it's March 3rd as we're recording this, so we're still got quite a bit of time until the draft takes place over there in Wisconsin. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, I would like this, man. And there, like you said, there's good value later on too. Like a lot of offensive guards and in the league, you can find some good talent in like rounds 3 through 5. So that's something to keep in mind. But it's just one route that I think would be pretty cool just for the immediate and just playing either guard spot, depending on what happens during the offseason here with Kevin Zeitler and a few other variables. And then the future too, just keeping that unit really strong. You know what I mean? Moving forward.
Yeah, absolutely. I know for me personally, I actually looked on the other side of the trenches, looking at the defensive side of the football. If he's available, and again, he had an amazing weekend at the combine, so I'm not as confident that he'll be at 28 as I was probably before the combine. But if the Lions could somehow get their hands on Jahad Campbell, Morgan, we've seen them do some amazing things with just fantastic football players. Like regardless of positional value and all of those things, being able to get a player that you just know that you could put him on the football field, give him a set number of snaps, and know that he's going to make an impact. That's what I think of when I look at Jahad Campbell. Like, there may be people that will question drafting a Sam linebacker in the first round when you may arguably have bigger needs at, like we just talked about, offensive line. Some people may want a pure edge rusher. Someone may want a pure defensive tackle. But to go out and get a Sam linebacker may get some people scratching their head, but I don't think people could be that mad about getting Jahad Campbell.
No, this is another one. This is like for me when I was doing the prep for this video, it was Gray Zabel and Jahad Campbell were the top. A couple of other names are around there, but I'd be over the moon, man. And this is another one I watched him. I watched it back because I had recorded it, and oh god, like you talk about just the acceleration is crazy. I think Eric wrote that in his piece, talking about like the off-ball linebackers that impressed him. That he ran a 4.52. Broad jump 10.7, so he's twitchy, 6'3", 235. He's a mover, man. And what I liked, I heard this when I was listening to Greg Rosenthal's podcast, but apparently Jahad Campbell like went back and went through like a pass rushing, like the drills just to show, because he, like you talked about, Miko, was super fluid, moving his hips in coverage. So in my opinion, taking him, if he's there at 28, I'd be like, run to the podium. Brad Holmes going to get in trouble again for turning in his card too soon. I think that highly of him. So if he gets there, but to give people a little bit, if you're like, oh, I don't want to take a Sam linebacker first round, think of it this way. He can do all the things we just talked about, right? He can drop into coverage. He can man up if you're playing, man, and he can rush the passer and set an edge against the run. That's someone you can keep on the field in a myriad of situations. If you're going, heavier front, 5-man fronts to try to combat like a strong running attack, he can be out there. If you're in a shoot, he can play. Like if you don't want to take Anzalone and Jack Campbell off the field, you got options, right? Because he can drop. Yeah. You can, the sim pressures we talk about, right? You can do a ton of different things if you added Jahad Campbell to the Lions defense. I'd be over the moon, bro. So I'm right there with you.
Yeah, I think it would be a great addition, like not even just for the immediate, but like also for the future, right? We know about the possibility of the Lions not being able to bring back Derek Barnes, which, free agency kicking off in about a week. But you also have to look at Alex Anzalone not having that many more years on his contract. If your linebacker future is Campbell times 2 and Jack and Jahad, like you're in a really good place, because Jack is just coming off of a really good sophomore season. Jahad seems like he has a lot of untapped potential. I think it would be something that, again, it's a different way of building your defense, but I think you would at least have playmakers at that second level of your defense.
And two do it all guys, man. Like that would be terrific in my opinion. Like you'd have, because I don't care what people say, linebackers matter. Like you see these teams that have been really successful lately, the Ravens, the Niners, you know, they got linebackers, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think they really do matter. And having those two guys, and some company in Detroit would make bank off that merch, Campbell and
Bro,
Campbell. So
Campbell's Soup would come banging on Detroit's door and being like, hey,
true.
we have the perfect
That's a good point
advertisement.
too. You know what, too? That's good. You know, everybody loves some Campbell soup, so I'm
All
hungry.
right, man. So that's if the Lions were to stay pat at 28, right? We have Gray Zabel, we have Jahad Campbell. But let's say the Lions wanted to get aggressive, right? I mean, picking at 28 on one hand is great because it's kind of like a testament to like how good of a season you had. But again, you're at the mercy of the draft. Like you don't really get to necessarily always get to quote unquote pick the cream of the crop. You have to pick what's available to you. But we've seen this team be aggressive. Brad Holmes is not afraid to trade up. So we're not saying where you're trading up to, but Morgan, if you had to trade up for a specific player, who was somebody on your list that you're just like, hey, like this dude would be worth whatever the price tag would be to go up and get him?
So, excuse me, when we look at these, you know, composites like Eric's document, again, I'll plug it again. If you're really into the draft, we still got 2 months. Check out Detroit Lions breakdown. Eric has a crazy, it's Patreon, and it's worth it. Okay, so you're looking at it here. His composites, the one I'm looking at is Shamar Stewart. Do it all defensive lineman out of Texas A&M, 6'5", 281. That's a large human.
Big
So
man.
we talk about, yeah, bro. You talk about being able to do a lot, right? He could play that big end role opposite of Hutch, and you'd have a really imposing front. Like if your 4-man front, once Aleem is healthy, goes Hutchinson, Aleem McNeil, DJ Reader, and a Shamar Stewart, good luck. You know what I mean? That's some good stuff right there. You talk about the can crunchers. Yeah, that would check out for me. They have him ranked anywhere from, you know, Dan Brugler has him all the way up at 9 overall. So I love
Mm-hmm.
Dane's work. And Daniel Jeremiah has him at 28. So that's the range for him. It's pretty broad. But I think we talked about before, if you're going to do like a Jamison Williams pick, like where the Lions moved up from 32 to 12. So if you moved up 20 spots to 8 overall, well, that was like a first swap and a third round pick, I believe.
Yeah.
So that's something I could tolerate if they really feel like they love a prospect. Shamar Stewart would be up there for me, man. What about you?
Yeah, that's the exact name. Like he had one of the better performances at the combine this week, and I think again, people knew that he was an impactful player on the football field. But when you have that size, 6'5", 280, you know, and you're that quick, you're that powerful, you're that agile, you're that explosive, you know, those are the things that get you climbing up the board. So, like you said, like I wouldn't be surprised if we start seeing, you know, a lot more post combine mock drafts where Shamar Stewart's being picked somewhere in the high teens, maybe even creeps inside the top 10 because everyone's looking for the next Chris Jones, right, Morgan? Like everyone's looking for that big defensive lineman that has the versatility to play inside and play outside. And Shamar Stewart has that. And I think it's something that the Lions would really covet, especially if you're not really in the market for bringing back Levi Onwuzurike, right? And Levi was kind of supposed to be that guy for the Lions. Shamar Stewart is probably going to come with a hefty price tag, even if it's more than a third round pick. Maybe you might have to throw in a future pick as well. But I think he's the type of player that's worth that investment when you're talking about, you know, setting up your defensive line for years to come. If that's the mentality that you want to have of like, hey, we want to make sure our trenches are set, and you're talking about that including an Aiden Hutchinson and a Lee McNeil and a Shamar Stewart for the next 5 years, like you're in a really good place.
Yeah, I'd be thrilled. That's one that would have the old crusty football soul in me very happy, because 280 is a massive human being, guys. Like think about how who was just with the Lions last year. It didn't work out. Marcus Davenport, right?
Yeah.
Like a big nasty, like a Marcus Davenport's game is awesome. That's what I get a little bit sad because people like, you know, disparage him on social media, and I get it. Can't stay healthy. Shout out Ryan Matthews. Everyone knows what the best ability is, but when he's healthy, man, he's a heck of a player. And if Shamar Stewart could be like Marcus Davenport with more juice, sign me up, brother, because that would make this Lions front crazy. Then you're it just it and it that's why I love the trenches so much, folks, and that's why you hear me and Miko talk about this so much because in my opinion, it's a force multiplier, right? Because if your
Mm-hmm.
D line, if your trenches are playing really well, it makes life easier for your quarterback and receivers. Obviously, it makes life easier for your linebackers too. Let me tell you. So, and if you got good linebackers like we just talked about, which the Lions definitely do right now, it just keeps on ringing out, and you end up with a really good unit because that'd be huge, man. I would love that one. The Georgia guys would also be cool, but I'm glad we both met on Shamar Stewart. That's one that I really like.
Yeah, absolutely. So with that said, with the first, let's put the first round out of the to the side right now because obviously there's more to the draft than just the first round. Everyone focuses on the first round pick, but there's still the day 2 picks, there's still the day 3 picks. When you start looking at those picks, Morgan specifically, is there anyone that jumps out to you that you're like, man, if the Lions could get their hands on this guy, like they would be in a really good place for the future, whether it's a developmental guy, whether it's a guy that you feel like could be a plug and play starter. Who kind of stands out for you in that regard?
I would be cool with Jonah Savania. He's like
I knew
there.
it. The minute I saw his highlight, the minute I saw his press conference, I was like, this dude just shot up Morgan's board.
Yeah, that was he's the one. Oh, he's the one who talked about he models his stuff off Panay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I forgot about that to be honest, but yes, he just moved up even higher. Just moved up even higher. You guys know if you watch this channel, love my Polynesian people. You know what I mean? I think
Mm-hmm.
there's something in that area that makes phenomenal athletes, really good people. You know, they
Great
like I'm.
people,
You know what I mean?
impeccable athletes,
Just golly, superhumans. If y'all are,
truly.
me and Miko are both '90s babies. So you think back like Troy Polamalu, huh? Like that's the one that sticks out in my like him just running around Pittsburgh secondaries with the hair flapping in the wind and making plays.
Yeah.
So yeah, and then obviously Panay Sewell. But yeah, Jonah Savania, he'd be like should challenge. Eric has him in the should challenge for a starting role as a rookie. I really liked for when I look at offensive lineman guys. If you're looking, you're looking over combine data. One thing I really like for in the trenches, especially, but the 10-yard split. So Savania had a 1.72, looked good in drills. Fluid mover, and yeah, that'd be a good one. Eric said he talked about he stays low while maintaining speeds. Well, it was one of the best he saw at the best he saw at the combine. So checked me off there. Another one I really like that would just be like good value. Like if you're picking him in the third round, I don't know where he's going to go. Tate Rutledge, battle tested guard from Georgia, would be a good replacement for Kevin Zeitler, or who knows what happens here in a week with free agency. Like I said, played at Georgia, so he's got that experience, known for having a little bit of a nasty streak. I believe he has a mullet. So you know how it goes for some of
Nasty
those.
looking mullet too. Like I mean that in a good way. It's a good looking mullet. Like not
Yeah.
everybody looks good in a mullet.
No, it's
Brother's rocking it.
certain white guys, you guys like certain ones can pull off mullets. Certain, I'm like, no, you need to shave that right now. Get rid of
Mm-hmm.
it. But yeah, he looks good. It looks like it makes you like when you're listening to good music, you've been making the stank face. Like
Yeah.
I see his mullet, and I'm like, yeah, you're probably not fun to play football against. You know what I mean?
Nah. I'm with you on that one though. Like that's another really good one. I'm gonna join you on the offensive line, and I'm gonna go probably a little bit later. Probably someone that you're talking about, and maybe in like the fourth, maybe fifth round. Wyatt Millum out of West Virginia, another like really big kid. I think he's like 6'6", 320. Has all the size to play tackle and did play tackle at West Virginia, but a lot of the talk that you're hearing about Wyatt is that he'll probably be moving inside because of how he plays. Like he plays so aggressive and so athletically that it's almost like it would almost feel like a waste to put him out there on the tackle spot. And instead, like I think more teams are going to try to put him inside. And I think about what the Lions did last year drafting Giovanni Manu, right? Giovanni Manu is someone that I think is still going to be viewed as a project, where I think like Wyatt would be someone that's maybe like a couple steps ahead. And so could maybe really challenge for one of those, guard positions while you're still trying to figure out what you have in Manu. Maybe he's more of a swing tackle. Maybe he's more, maybe they do try to invest in him more so at just playing left tackle and they're willing to take the time that's necessary to develop him there. Well, you still would have someone like Wyatt that you could kind of plug in in the trenches at one of the guard spots and still have some really good athleticism and power to really continue to keep this running game going. So That's one guy that I like, in the trenches on the offensive side. I also really like CJ West out of Indiana. When you talk about defensive tackles, I know the Lions went out and already they got, Makai Wingo last year. He was a little bit on the smaller side. CJ West is the same thing, but he looked so good in the on the field drills, Morgan, of just again showing that athleticism, showing that explosiveness. It's another guy that I think, again, if you can add, some talent on the interior of your defensive line to play behind, Aleem McNeil and DJ Reader, or at least be able to have that depth while you're waiting for Aleem to come back. CJ West seems like someone that's worth, that type of, again, maybe like a third round type of investment.
No, I like West. One of the few places where I'm like, I don't really care about height all that much is if you play like 3 tech,
Mm-hmm.
especially just because it's worse to play against. I have to imagine. I didn't play offensive line like that at that level, but I would not want to block like an Aaron Donald. No, thank you, dude. No, thank you. Like or
Not if
like
you have not if you have the strength and the speed, right? Which is again kind of like the thing that makes CJ West so impressive is again he may be at that smaller size, but he has a very quick first step and he seems to really understand leverage and how to play at that size. So,
yeah.
when you're out there playing at Indiana, you're getting that type of recognition during the combine, maybe not playing against the best, offensive line tackle, but offensive line talent, but you're still making waves. It's something that definitely caught my eye.
No, and he played against some pros, I'm sure, in the Big Ten, right? So I think that'd be one I'd be happy about. I really like the Wyatt Millum pick. That'd be cool with me because like I think he would be better suited at guard in my opinion. And like he moves really well. That's something that I saw like when I was doing my prep
Mm-hmm.
for when I wrote that article for Pride of Detroit. So that'd be cool. That'd be cool with me, man. He can move. I'd be happy with that. At the end of the day, I feel like we just need to throw resources like 2 and 2 at the trenches. You know what I mean? Two O line, 2 D line. Figure it out, right?
I'll be honest with you, man. This was like one of the first combines where I wasn't all that interested in like safety and corner. Like I wasn't like those days didn't really move me. Obviously, the lines are set at like tight end and running back, so again, I wasn't really locked in on those days. Wide receiver, definitely, checked out a couple of guys there. And I think there's definitely some talent that the Lions could possibly look at if they're looking at looking to get like a long term X receiver. There's some guys that are in this draft class that could be a viable option. But yeah, this feels like a really good year if you need trenches, like help in the trenches. Seems like the draft to kind of double dip in there on both sides of the ball, whether it's offensive line or defensive line.
Yep. Keep things cheap, right? Because everything's going to we talk about it up and down, but everything's going to get expensive. And I like that you brought up the Manu thing and not expensive to the point that you're not going to be able to keep everybody. I do think people are running around a little bit too much with the hair on fire already.
Mm-hmm.
The new TV deal being negotiated, I think that's 2029. That's going to help. The salary cap's going to jump a lot from that, let me tell you. So yeah, the Manu thing, if people look at it, like if he's dressing more next year and he's, I don't know, your swing tackle, that's great. The trajectory is good. And then if he's competing for a starting spot like 2027, I think that was always the vision for Manu. So I do think like if you talked about taking the Wyatt Millum kid from West Virginia who has guard tackle capability as a pro, I think that'd be perfectly fine because I think he could, push for a starting spot right away, even with Mahogany and Graham Glasgow and whoever else involved. I think he'll push for it.
Yeah, I'm right
Competition,
there with
man.
you. And I think it also could be really good competition for Manu, right? If someone that could be again floating between that guard and tackle spot, you bring in another guy that's similar build. That's again more competition, that more reason for Manu to kind of step up his game. I just like the idea of like having more athletes on your offensive line, and I think with Wyatt, with Manu, like you got some really good potential to have a really, really athletic offensive line in the next few years. And if you give that to Jameer, just give him the rushing title every year.
Yes, sir. That's what I'm saying. Lean into that identity, man. It's just think of it like this, guys. Like we talked about, we got free agency here in a week. We know how Brad likes to operate. Expect him to plug all these perceived holes in
Mm-hmm.
free agency like he always does. And they'll roll into the draft with him just rubbing his hands together because he knows he can do really whatever he wants. And that's what got this roster to the point it is now, where they're winning 15 games in a season, going to the NFC Championship, all that, right? So just keep that in mind as we approach this, because I know for sure I've had to check myself a couple times because we are in unprecedented territory still. It's probably going to take a few more years of this for it to really sink in because like, dang, we're picking 28th. You know what I mean? Like, dang.
It's not as exciting as it is when you're picking in the top 10 or you're picking in the
No.
top 5 and you're talking about getting one of the best talents in that draft class. But like we went through with this video, which I think is why this video is so helpful, is that, like, again, there could still be some viable talent if the Lions decide to stay at 28. They also have some targets that it's like, hey, maybe there's a couple guys in this draft that are worth, trading away some draft assets to go up and get. And then there's still some really good day 2, day 3 type of talent that the Lions could have their eyes on to really continue to help round out this roster. So we
Yeah.
definitely would love to hear from you guys in the comment section below. Who are some guys that you are, that you're kind of eyeing at 28? Who is someone that you would be excited and be, open to the Lions trading for? And who are some of those day 2, day 3 picks that you're kind of having an eye on that you're hoping that the Lions are also prioritizing as a must have? Let us know that stuff in the comment section below. Like Morgan said, we are about to be shifting gears a little bit as we start to kind of go into free agency. There's a lot of things to talk about there in terms of not just like the players that the Lions could go out and get, but the players that the Lions should probably be prioritizing keeping. There is a specific corner out in Philadelphia that was recently made available. Maybe we talk
Yeah.
about that next, on our next video, but there's a lot of stuff to talk about when it comes to free agency.
Yeah, man, I'm excited. It's a good draft class too, guys. Like, one final note on that: there's a ton of interior defensive linemen and edge rushers that are all like widely projected as like top 30 players. So there's going to be talent, like Miko said, there at 28. Just depends on who it is. And yeah, free agency is going to be interesting, man. And then there was that rumor about the Jaguars being really interested in Carlton, which makes me sad because I would really like to keep Carlton Davis.
Yeah, I'm gonna spoiler alert. If you want to make sure that you're ready for our next video, we're talking about Carlton Davis because that's the free agent that I think the Lions should prioritize probably above anyone else. So we're gonna
100%.
definitely talk about Carlton. We're definitely gonna talk about Slay. There's a lot to get into when it comes down to, again, free agency, but specifically free agency when it pertains to the cornerback market, because I think there's a lot of intrigue with that group and what could be made available to the Lions. So, like always, if you're looking for any more additional content related to the Detroit Lions, all you have to do is stay locked in at the Pride of Detroit website. You can also hit the subscribe button and the notification bell over here on YouTube, because that's going to make it easier for when we upload that video about Carlton Davis and the other cornerbacks that are available in free agency. That's going to be your easiest way to know immediately when that video gets uploaded. So yeah, make sure to do that. And like always, continue to just share the video, support where you can. And with all that said, I'm Miko. He's Morgan. Thank you guys for taking the time to watch, and we'll catch you guys in the next one.